before. A researcher, Pauline Gulliver, says they don't know whether the higher figure is due to an increase in violence or more people coming forward to report it. In Britain, an agreement has been reached which will see the Democratic Unionist Party back Theresa May's minority government. The deal, which comes 2 weeks after a snap election resulted in a hung parliament, will see the 10 DUP MPs back the Conservatives in key parliamentary votes. There will be £1 billion in extra spending in Northern Ireland over the next 2 years. Rescue breathing gear is being brought in at most rail tunnels to deal with fumes and fire. Kiwi Rail has until this week to meet a deadline to provide the gear for all its workers and train drivers who go into tunnels more than 200 metres long. The cause of the typhoid outbreak that infected members of an Auckland church group earlier this year may never be known. Over 2 months, 24 members of the group were infected and one of them died with the disease. A report commissioned by the Ministry of Health has found the outbreak was brought under control relatively quickly, but there were shortcomings in the way it was managed. The American Supreme Court is to decide a major case on whether business owners can refuse to serve gay couples if they oppose same-sex marriage. The case involves a Christian baker in Colorado who refused to make a wedding cake for 2 men. The baker, Jack Phillips, says the law violates his rights to freedom of speech and free exercise of religion. That's the news. Today's weather with Met Service. Kaitaia is mostly sunny with 15 degrees. Whangarei, fine and 15. Auckland, sunny and 14. Hamilton, some morning fog, otherwise fine, 13. Tauranga, blue skies and 15. Whakatane, fine, 16. Rotorua, fine today, 12. Gisborne, a few showers and 14. Napier and Hastings, morning cloud breaking and more sunny spells, 14 the high. Taupo, blue skies and 11. Taumaranui has a fine day with morning fog and 13. The rest of the North Island centres, all the way south to Wellington, start out fine, and there's cloud from afternoon, although that's in the evening for Masterton, which has a high of 13. Whanganui gets 14, New Plymouth, Palmerston North and Levin 13 degrees, Kapiti and Wellington 12. Blenheim and Nelson fine, then cloud thickening from afternoon. Blenheim 15 degrees, Nelson 14. Westport cloudy, the odd shower and 14. Greymouth and Hokitika, occasional rain and 13. Kaikoura cloud thickening from afternoon, 14. Christchurch cloud thickens, a little evening rain and 12. Ashburton and Timaru, a few spots of rain from afternoon, a high of 10. Oamaru, a few spots of rain clearing this afternoon, 11. Wanaka and Queenstown, showers clearing, fine at times from afternoon. Wanaka 9, 8 in Queenstown. Alexandra and Dunedin, a few spots of morning rain and then fine spells from afternoon. 8 in Alexandra, 10 for Dunedin. Invercargill, a few showers, 11 degrees. It's 24.5 to 8.
And this is Morning Report. I'm Guy Nespin, live this morning from the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, or the Royal Yacht Squadron at Auckland's West Haven Marina, and I'm joined now by 2 people with a huge stake in this. Have been watching very keenly this morning. Larry Keating, who's of course our voice from the last America's Cup and had the unenviable task, didn't you, Larry, of commentating on the last Cup when New Zealand snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Also with me, Penny Whiting. Now, Penny has taught yachting schools, been the joy really for many, many decades here in Auckland. You've been at West Haven for every big race, and this morning, no exception. We're going to talk soon about what you think is going to happen next, but I just want to get your reaction, starting with you, Penny, to this fantastic morning.
Oh, the dawn has broken in Auckland. The Cup's coming home, and it's just fantastic for all of New Zealand, not just Auckland. And I think that it's just a fabulous achievement. The boats were sailed with provision, and you know, they were put together by such experts, and it just wasn't the men on the boat, it was the whole wider team, and I think it's huge for New Zealand.
Now you've been teaching yachting for 50 years, you're a huge figure of yachting all over Auckland. What have people been saying to you over the morning about the magnitude of this?
Well, everybody's still really getting their head around it. This is just the beginning. Wait till the Cup arrives home and then the necessary protocols put in place as to what's going to happen next time. But everybody's terribly excited and they think the win was well deserved.
Larry, if I can bring you in, Larry Keating, what were your thoughts this morning as Team New Zealand crossed the line and clinched the Cup?
Well, you know, Penny and I were sitting fairly close together, and she tapped me on the shoulder as Oracle finished behind Team New Zealand. She said to me, Larry, how many seconds behind Team New Zealand was Oracle? And I said, Penny, There is no second. And I think, the writing was on the wall yesterday. Yeah. And if you look the way it all happened today, to me, they've all been talking about how much speed Team New Zealand had. The measure of speed that that yacht had going down to the second mark was when they came from behind, rolled over the top of Oracle. We could see then, really, it was all over.
And what do you guys think is going to happen now? Because it's pretty complex, isn't it, Larry, about exactly how it comes back and how it's defended?
Well, yeah, there's a protocol, of course, that has already been written, from my understanding, and that will, all of the information about the venue, the type of boat that they're planning, will have already been discussed with the new challenger of record, and that will be Luna Rossa, of course. Patrizio Bertelli would have been standing next to Grant Dalton, no doubt, out on the water. And as Team New Zealand crossed the line, he would have pulled out of his hip pocket the challenge for the next America's Cup. So that we do know will be Luna Rossa. What the future of the Cup in terms of what yacht they sail is really in, I guess they'll be telling us shortly.
Penny, how big is this for New Zealand?
I think it's just huge. I think the ramifications for all people interested in sailing and everybody that wants to get interested in sailing is just going to be great, because you and I know what it does to the people of New Zealand. They so get behind this event, and yachting is just so huge here, and it's just going to be wonderful for everybody.
And it spans right across, doesn't it, into innovation, engineering, building. So there's a huge payoff in terms of the impact for New Zealand.
Yes, and the flow down effect from our builders, designers and technicians that put these things together is just really big. But like in this cup that we've just watched, to me, yes, they were on a sailing boat, but they were actually on a flying machine as well. And the aerodynamics, and a bicycle, but the aerodynamics of what made these boats sail. I constantly looked across and saw the sail just sort of flopping there. The boat was going so fast on its foils that the sails were really not that important.
And what does it mean for participation? I mean, you must see it in your daily life to get this sort of boost and this sort of enthusiasm.
Oh, people just get so wound up and excited about it. And for all these years teaching people to sail, I just love the enthusiasm they get. And sailing in Auckland is just one of the great harbours in the world. It changes radically every 6 hours when the tide turns, and that would be quite different, because sailing in Bermuda to me was like sailing on a pond, like flat, and never got the wind against the tide.
You wait till they hold it in Wellington. Larry, if I could bring you in, could we talk about some of the unsung heroes? All the concentration, all the media focus has been on Peter Burley. What about some of the unsung heroes here?
Well, I think Peter, every day that he's up on the in the press conference, mentions the people behind the scene that we don't see. There are so many of them, but I couldn't give you the names of them all. But from the design that and the engineering that went into that craft, and for Team New Zealand to have been playing and training out here on Hauraki Golf right throughout the summer, signalled something to me anyway, that they had something very special that they weren't prepared to leak out too soon. It surprises me, Penny, and I've been thinking about this in the last hour or so, that really I think that Larry Ellison and Russell Coots and the boys from Oracle really underestimated the true Kiwi factor. The innovative factor that New Zealanders have had in the America's Cup since 1987. I mean, when you think about it, we came up with fiberglass, and ultimately with the foils. I mean, it was all New Zealand innovation that's gone into the America's Cup in the last 30 years. And I think they underestimated us. They were fundamentally sailing a manual craft against a high-tech, energised New Zealand, young New Zealand team that's been playing on their own. I mean, and all of the others were back there in Bermuda for months and months and months, training in a manual craft.
All right, I'm going to bring Phil Goff, the Mayor of Auckland, in very, very shortly, but just a final word from you, Penny. How will this resonate out into the world, do you think? I mean, we're all understandably very, very excited this morning. What is the global impact, do you think?
Oh, I think the global impact is quite significant for the economy, and I think that money is going to flow into New Zealand because people are going to want to be a part of the action of what's actually going to be transpired here. And it's just bigger than Auckland, it's bigger than New Zealand. It's a fabulous event, and we're leading the way.
Hey, thank you so much for your time, Penny. Great to talk to you this morning. Penny Whiting. Speaking also to Larry Keating there. Now, as I said, we're going to bring in the Auckland Mayor, Phil Goff, who is with us this morning. What time did you get here this morning, Phil?
I know I got up at 3:30, and hey, guess what, Guy? You're really lucky to come to work that early in the morning because there's no traffic on the road. Probably the only time in Auckland.
That's right. I bet you thought you'd fix the traffic this morning.
Well, what a great morning though. It was worth every minute of getting up early just to be here, to absorb the atmosphere, just to feel the spirit soar in this building as we crossed the line. You know, we were all confident about it, but there was that nagging doubt. You know, that demon from San Francisco in 2013, and we've buried that demon. And just great, you know, to hear Glenn Ashby talk, that the humility, the modesty about it, the same thing that Peter Burling has shown all the way through. It takes you back to the days of Ed Hillary, and it's what makes you feel really great to be a New Zealander.
Because there is that pushback, isn't there? And I don't want to rain on the parade at all, but
We haven't talked about the parade yet.
Yeah, we will. We'll hold you to that. But there's a feeling that from some that in resentment about when money goes towards it, and people say it's it's a sport for the privileged. How do you think that today's result is going to change that, if at all?
Well, I just looked at the row of kids that were sitting on the ground in front of the screen this morning, and what I could see there was the inspiration that Peter Burling, Glenn Ashby were for a whole new generation of kids who will be out on our beautiful harbour, the Waitemata, learning to sail, inspired to be the best they can. Look, I don't think New Zealanders will be talking about elite sport today. They'll be talking about, bringing the cup home. City of Sails, you know, we are the City of Sails in Auckland, and you know, it was a showcase of skill, of sportsmanship, and of our yachting technology. We're the best in the world at those things, and you know, any New Zealander that doesn't feel proud about that, I don't know what they're thinking.
Okay, so two things. I want to talk about the parade, and then I want to talk about the possibility of it coming here to Auckland and how ready we'd be and what we might do. So, what's the deal with the parade?
Well, I had discussions yesterday with someone in Bermuda talking about it. The team's coming home on different days. We won't be able to get everybody back on the same day, but I understand that most of the team will be coming back Thursday. I've seen speculation that could be the day that we could do it, but it is only speculation at this stage. Had an initial chat with the Minister for Sports and said, look, it'd be a great thing. I took my kids, 22 years ago. My kids were, I think, 8, 10 and 12, and I took them to see Peter Blake bring that cup home and parade up Queen Street, and that's something that they've remembered ever since, and that I've remembered ever since. So, hey, it would be silly not to do something like that again.
Absolutely, and obviously, you're the Mayor of Auckland, but do you think it's important that the cup is toured throughout the rest of the country too?
Oh, absolutely. This is a win for the whole of our country. This is New Zealand's cup that they're bringing home. So, we'll claim a piece of the pride, but, this is something that we obviously want to share with the whole of the country.
And as the euphoria dies down a little bit and you drive home out into those already fairly busy streets that I can see, the Harbour Bridge is looking pretty busy this morning, you must have a little bit of trepidation. I know there's probably an election between, a mayoral election between when we hold the cup again, but what about Auckland holding it?
Well, look, I'd be delighted if Team New Zealand made the decision to hold the next America's Cup race in Auckland, but it's their decision. They decide where, when and how, and they may know the answers to that question. We haven't dared to think about it so far. We thought we might jinx it if we were premature. But look, if they decide that they're going to hold the next America's Cup in Auckland, we'd be delighted. We'll do everything we can to cooperate. We don't have buckets of money to throw at it in Auckland. Everybody knows that. We've got major infrastructure projects, transport and housing. But aside from money, we'll cooperate in any way that we can.
And you were a minister in the last Labor government when it was held, wasn't it? 2000 and also 2003.
I remember 2000.
So
I've forgotten about 2003. What happened in 2003?
Oh, nothing good.
Nothing good. Yeah, that's about it.
But I just wanted to talk about the economic benefits, to New Zealand about holding it here.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think there are benefits to the whole of New Zealand. What we've highlighted is not simply our sportsmanship and our skills, but the technology that we've got around that yacht, and even the Oracle. Oracle was built in New Zealand effectively, and this is a great example of showcasing New Zealand to the world, not simply as a good producer of dairy and lamb, but at the top of the league in terms of technology. So the potential spin-off for New Zealand, I think, is really good. There were tens of millions of people watching that race around the world, and they're looking at New Zealand as a small, smart, decent, clean country, and that's the sort of branding that money simply can't buy.
Speaking of clean, you got your red socks on?
I have. Look, you've got to see. It's a Peter Blake Trust, and I promised you that I was going to mention Peter Blake because he is in that league of great New Zealanders that, when we celebrate today, we think of that man, his commitment not only to the sport and to New Zealand, but his commitment to the environment. And we should continue to be inspired by the memory of that man.
Hey, thank you so much. That is the Auckland Mayor, Phil Goff. Back to you in Wellington, Susie.
Well, thank you very much, Guyan. And indeed, of course, it is Tuesday. That means it's the day that we talk to the Labour Party leader, Andrew Little. He's with me in the Wellington studio, and you've got your red socks on too.
I have my red socks on. Had them on yesterday afternoon, actually, just in anticipation.
Okay. So for the America's Cup this morning, you were watching the win, weren't you?
I watched the race this morning. Yeah, very exciting. I mean, I remember I actually went to Fremantle to watch when we were racing in 1987. And man, it's come a long way since then, just the technology, the boats and all the rest of it, and the much shorter races, which I think makes it a much better spectator sport than what it was 30 years ago. So
do you enjoy the sailing from on shore, or do you actually go out in the water?
Oh no, I watch it from on shore. Well, actually, America's Cup I watch on TV because that's where you get the best view. I mean, the technology, it's again New Zealand technology that the broadcasters use to keep a track of who's actually in the lead, because you can't tell just from the images itself. So we've got a lot to be proud of in this.
Absolutely. Now, just a quick question on this before we move on to some other stories and some other things to talk to you with. But would a Labour government, for example, want to back Team New Zealand, back the winner, put 30 million or so into it?
I agree in principle with the idea of the central government putting some money in for now that we're going to host it. I think there are benefits that go beyond just the racing syndicate. So I think let's see what the details are. Let's work with the New Zealand team that's going to be putting it together. I should add too, just in terms of the team that won this morning. Fantastic work by Peter Burling. Let's not forget the work of Grant Dalton, who held that team together and through some pretty difficult times, and also Sir Stephen Tyndall, who backed that team when a lot of the financing dried up. He kept that together, and I think we've got to acknowledge the contribution of those people who don't get a lot of acknowledgement for what they contribute.
Now let's just talk about a couple of other bits and pieces with you. Now, as the Todd Barclay affair really has been continuing to dog the Prime Minister Bill English, Labour, though, still in damage control after it was revealed last week that Matt McCartan, former employee of the Labour Party, had initiated a scheme for 80 unpaid international interns to help bolster the party's election chances. Let's talk a little bit more about this, because some of the leaked programme plan, including costings, were showing that both the Unite and First unions were going to be stumping up some cash, but that's now been rejected by Unite. Money is said to have come instead from another backer. So where exactly is this money coming from?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. This isn't something that has been sanctioned or approved or authorised in any way by the party organisation. And I think what we all discovered last week when, the party got the complaints, the rest of us got involved, tried to sort it out, is there's a whole heap of details we're now just trying to work out and trying to sort out. So I don't know what other money has come in and where it's come from. Right now, the Party General Secretary, Andrew Curtin, and his team, they're sorting out the young people first, and that's, I think, we're pretty much there. Then we're going to try and get various other questions answered as the weeks go on.
Well, that has been going on for some time now, because it was middle of last week that this first came to light. Are you saying that you don't know where this money's coming from?
I don't know any details about the organisation of it, apart from what we now know. I think 85 young people here staying on a marae and helping out in various parts of the Auckland campaigns. Beyond that, I don't know. I'm not sure the party knows or knew at the time, and we're in the process now of just getting the detail about the organisation behind it.
But we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars here. I mean, the amount of money that was in the Matt McCartan document was funding of up to $198,000. Was that the amount that's come into the coffers? And are you saying you don't know where the thick end of 200 grand's come from?
Well, no one in the party is responsible for what Matt and others, and it wasn't, let's be clear, it wasn't Matt alone. There were at least 4 people involved in driving this, 3 on the party side.
Who were the 4 people?
Well, I'm not going to go into those details. We're going to have to investigate kind of exactly how things got to the situation it did, where the party intervened last week. But I've seen that document, and it looks more like a wish list to me. We're in the process of working out exactly what the nature of various arrangements were. We know there was the arrangement with the marae, arrangements with transport to get people to go to various places, and that's pretty much it. So we're trying to just get sorted out, get things worked out for the young people, so they've got other places to stay, they've got things to do, and their expectations about learning about our political system, we meet those. In terms of other questions that need to be answered, we'll get on to those just to as soon as we've got the other things sorted out.
Well, let's just talk about this a little bit further, though. You're saying this was not Matt McCartan on his own, but there were other people within the Labour Party who were helping pull this together, yes?
Well, it's pretty clear that there were others involved,
Okay, but while this was being done, Matt McCartan was in the pay of the Labour Party, wasn't he?
He was the director of the Auckland office, which is funded out of the leader's office, my office. He was working for me, A, to open and run that office, and B, run my Auckland program, outreach program.
Okay, so he's working for you, but you're saying you didn't know what he was doing. You didn't know about this.
I didn't know about this. I didn't know about the extent to which he was organising stuff. I mean, he doesn't work for me 24 hours a day. He has a job to manage, put together my program when I'm up there every week and arrange the visits that I do. He does that.
But is it his job to put this kind of thing together when he's working for you, when he's being paid by this, taxpayer money?
No, he's not. When he first floated the idea to me at the beginning of the year of an internship program, I said to him then, that's a party issue, it's a campaign issue, that has to be dealt with by the party. I was not aware that he was involved in dealing with this. Now, he can do this stuff in his own time. As I say, it doesn't work for me 24 hours a day.
But is it clear whether he did do this in his own time, or was he doing this while he was being paid by the taxpayer?
Well, I certainly wasn't aware of him being involved in this in the times that I was in the Auckland office, and he was with me as I was going about my Auckland sort of visits and programs. So,
why do you think this was kept from you by someone who's, essentially your chief of staff in Auckland?
Well, I go back to the fact that this wasn't anything, this program or project wasn't authorised by the party at all. It wasn't part of any formal party organisation. So,
would you not expect that he would talk to you about this kind of thing, though? Because otherwise it ends up coming out in a pretty surprising sort of fashion. I mean, in terms of a no surprises thing, wouldn't you expect him to say, oh, by the way, in my own time, in my evenings, whatever, I'm doing this?
I mean, I don't keep a track of everything he's doing in his own time. I think the fact that if that document is, to be believed about anything at all, he was clearly considering involving unions in all this. It wasn't just a party thing. So it looks to me like he and whoever else was involved with him was embarking on a project that wasn't just a party thing. So he was going beyond that. So he doesn't tell me absolutely everything he does. I'm not sure I want to know. But I certainly wasn't aware that this project was being organised in the way that it was, and it was advanced as far as it was before we got notified of problems with it.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for that. Andrew Little, the Labour Party leader in the Wellington studio this morning. It's now 8:04, and a decision by Auckland's District Health Boards to sever all